Today we're doing a lesson from History/Social Studies, and it's going to be on the American Civil War. In looking at Rob in the text, it's going to incorporate both lecture as well as the constructionist model. That would be that teachers include students in the day-to-day planning, and that students discuss and talk about their reading and writing in order to facilitate learning. Also, there's going to be some creative components as well that will provide students different methods to be able to absorb the knowledge. In going with the lecture component, first of all, the American Civil War. The dates were from 1861 until 1865. Now, there were several causes for the Civil War, one of which, of course, was slavery, as well as the North versus South, which was the industrial versus the agricultural society. And then it was a states' rights versus a strong central government as well. So in looking at slavery, the South, of course, was the agricultural component in that. And they viewed slavery as a states' rights issue, where their labor force was brought over or indentured from different areas, Africa being one, but then also there were prisoners such as Irish prisoners that were indentured servants or slaves into that society. So you had the agricultural component of the South, and then you also had the Industrial Revolution that occurred within the North, so that they were focusing more on manufacturing and streamlining processes and not as much. So you had the dichotomy of the New World versus the Old World factored into that, as well as whether or not it was a states' rights issue to have slaves or it was a strong central government's right to decide whether or not slaves were going to be allowed within the United States of America. So in going with that, the first shot that was ever fired for the American Civil War, of course, is attributed to anybody? Fort Sumter. And then, of course, that was in 1861, and that was the first shot. Of course, in looking at the chronology of the Civil War, you have 1861 shots fired at Fort Sumter. Then in 1862, and these are just general highlights, we're going to go in depth in that in a little while in the later lessons. In 1862, of course, you had the Battle of Antietam. Also in 1862, you had President Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation. Does anybody remember what states? Anybody? Table that, hold it in your pocket. We will come back and visit it. 1863, we had the Battle of Gettysburg. And then, of course, in 1865, we had the Confederate surrender by General Robert E. Lee in that. So that was your chronology boiled down. Does anybody remember the causes? Agricultural versus industrial, states' rights versus strong central, and then the slavery and anti-slavery dichotomy within the country. Fallouts, backing up, players within the American Civil War. Of course, you had General Robert E. Lee, who was the general of the Confederacy, that is right. Then you had Ulysses S. Grant, and he would be the general of the Union, that is correct. Good job. Okay, so those are your two players. We also have President, who was our president at that time? Abraham Lincoln. Good job. So you had those players. The outcomes of the Civil War, to kind of briefly highlight on those for a minute, you had about 500,000 soldiers, civilians mostly, that actually died within the Civil War. Also, one of the outcomes is the United States remained a unified country, bridging both the North and South together. You had the abolition of slavery. Of course, the North defeated the South, which is another outcome. And then you actually had also a strong central government that triumphed over the states' rights issues, so that central government with the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. That settled that whether or not slavery was indeed a states' rights issue or one that was controlled by the central government. In looking at our assignments for today, I actually have, and I apologize for my laptop not being used and my smart board being out of order today. Insert real smart board. With the Civil War, we're going to do study maps. I've tentatively drawn up a study map for the causes, and I need you to zoom in on this. Are we zoomed? Sort of. Do I need to walk forward?
That's good.
We have the causes of the Civil War. So in your study map, you would place in the center the American Civil War, since that is what we're focusing on. Offshoots would be, of course, the causes of the Civil War. Agricultural society versus industrialized society, slavery, and then here at the bottom we have the battle over states' rights versus a strong central government. Now this is just an example of how you can do your study map. We're actually going to do an assignment with a study map that is not involving the causes. This you will be provided with to take home for your project. We're actually going to go over the chronology of the dates. So those important dates such as when was the first shot fired at Fort Sumter? 1861, good job. Yes. We're actually going to lay out the study map so that you will have, this is tentative. I will be sending you home with this template as well. I also have an electronic format if you so need. With the chronology I went ahead and gave you the dates so that you would know which would go where. You start with 1861 and you insert the information. 1862, and I gave you a hint here, this is actually where the battle. Then you have another date, 1863, 1862, insert the battle. Down here is 1862, the other one. 1863, and then 1865. Now you are going to use your creativity to be able to create your study map however you would like it. If you, for instance, would want to incorporate on poster board, that is perfectly fine. You could incorporate pictures, postcards, different areas of that, snapshots. For instance, a snapshot of what this would be down here, 1862, the Emancipation Proclamation. Yes, good job. You can have the snapshots going in there. It could be a digital file if that's how you would like. If you would rather have it, say, in Microsoft Publisher, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, however you would like it, or you could do poster board. Your creativity is all the more reason to do this and embark on this and make it your own, so that it's a study guide for you to be able to remember the chronology of dates, because you will be quizzed on these at some point. Also, in looking at the Robb text, it talks about that there are some after-learning practices that actually help to facilitate education and being able to absorb the information for different learners, such as some strategies that would be to have students complete experiments and projects, ask students to use new information to create articles, and engage the students in self-evaluation. So by doing your study maps and making them personalized to how you would like for them to look and to feel and to do, that will hopefully allow to apply yourself and use the modalities and methods that best serve you. If you're a visual learner, for instance, those will be able to help you in completing your project, so that later on you remember the dates, the sequence, and the helpful hints about, and the facts about the dates that I've given you, the 5 dates, so that you can pass the quiz and do exceedingly well. But it also allows for processing of new information with regard to creativity. Also, there's going to be an extra credit assignment where you can create either a diary, if that's how you want, for instance, a perspective of a student or an adult, however you want, whatever age you would like to be. If you would like to be a different race, a different age, a different sex, whatever you would like to be. If you would like to do a diary, for instance, of how it was to survive during the Civil War, that isn't accepted for an extra credit assignment. You could do a letter to maybe your kindergarten self explaining the causes of the Civil War to a kindergartner. You could do a letter to yourself when you are 50 on explaining what you learned and why it was beneficial to learn about the causes for the American Civil War and the outcomes of that. That extra credit assignment, you will actually be provided with a handout later on of just basic guidelines, but it is free for you to go and to do how best you would be able to process your information. Are we at 5 minutes?
I think so.
Thank you, ma'am.